Have you ever walked away from an argument feeling like you lost something deeper than just a point? Not your pride, but your peace. There's a unique kind of exhaustion that comes from giving your energy to people who don't deserve it. You replay the words in your head, wonder what you should have said, wish you'd stayed calmer, but the damage is done. And the truth is, most of the time, what we think is a battle against others is really a battle within. The Stoics understood this long before us. They knew that true strength isn't loud. It doesn't need to win every fight. It knows how to choose when to speak, when to walk away, and when silence itself becomes the sharpest blade. In a world that constantly pushes us to react, Stoicism invites us to pause, observe, and respond with wisdom instead of impulse. In this video, I want to share with you not just strategies, but a different way of seeing conflict through the eyes of those who mastered themselves first. If you've ever felt tired of losing your calm just to prove a point, stay with me. This might offer you something better. Number 1. Delve into the depths of your adversary. Have you ever found yourself caught in a heated exchange, your pulse quickening, your mind racing, not because the argument was clear, but because something deeper felt provoked? Sometimes, what unsettles us most in conflict isn't the words being said, but the confusion beneath them. It's like standing at the edge of a roaring river, tempted to dive into the chaos without seeing what lies beneath the surface. But the Stoic does not leap. The Stoic observes. Epictetus reminds us, it is not the events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. When someone challenges us, offends us, or even threatens us, we often react to the outer turbulence, not the inner truth. The Stoic way begins by pulling back, not to avoid, but to understand. Like a wise geologist reading the land, you begin not by confronting your opponent's outbursts, but by studying their landscape. I remember a story, a fictional one perhaps, but true in spirit. A young man found himself constantly berated by his older colleague. Every conversation turned into a subtle attack. The young man wanted to snap back, to defend his worth, but instead he paused. He started asking quiet questions. What's been weighing on you lately? How do you see your role here? It turned out the older colleague wasn't angry at him. He was terrified of becoming irrelevant in a rapidly changing workplace. The hostility had nothing to do with the young man, but had he responded with equal heat, he would have missed the deeper truth entirely. So, the first Stoic strategy is not to overpower the enemy, but to examine them. What do they fear? What do they value? What has shaped their view of the world? This isn't about excusing harm or pretending they're right. It's about choosing to look deeper than the blow, deeper than the tone, deeper than the tension. Often, buried beneath anger is fear. Beneath arrogance is pain, and beneath conflict is the ache of unmet needs. When you choose this path of depth, you begin to see clearly not just others, but yourself. The storm loses its grip on your nerves, and the one who once felt like your adversary becomes a mirror, revealing something even more important: the strength of your own stillness. Understanding is the beginning of mastery, and from this clarity we move to the next principle, the art of revealing strength without force. Number 2, choose your battles wisely. Have you ever walked away from a pointless argument, exhausted, irritated, and wondering why you even engaged in the first place? It's a strange feeling, realizing you've spent your energy defending something that in hindsight didn't matter. Life is full of these traps, small provocations dressed as grand battles, and if we're not careful, we waste our strength fighting wars that don't deserve our attention. The Stoics remind us that discipline is not just about self-control in chaos, it's also about knowing when silence is strength. Seneca once said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay, and that delay is not weakness, it is the gateway to clarity." Before jumping into conflict, pause, step back. Ask yourself, is this worth it? Or is it just my ego trying to stay relevant? Not every hill is worth dying on. Not every slight deserves a response. Many of the fights we're invited to are invitations to chaos, not to resolution. There's a story I recall, a woman named Daria who was known in her workplace for never backing down. If someone made a snide remark, she'd fire back. If a teammate slacked off, she'd call them out instantly. But over time, she became bitter and worn out. Everything became a fight. One day, a younger colleague made an offhanded joke at her expense. She opened her mouth to retaliate, but then stopped. She remembered what her father used to say, "Pick your storms, or they'll pick you apart." She let it go. The room went silent. And something strange happened. Nothing. The joke died on its own, and for the first time, she felt stronger for saying nothing. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that it is often enough to remain silent. Letting go is not giving in. It's choosing mastery over your emotions instead of becoming a slave to them. When you evaluate a situation through this lens, you begin to see which conflicts are truly meaningful and which are merely noise. Choosing your battles wisely doesn't mean you stop standing up for yourself. It means you stop handing your peace to every passerby who wants to provoke you. And with that discernment, we step into the next lesson, mastering your reactions from within. Number 3, speak with calm and clarity. Have you ever left a conversation feeling like you said too much, but communicated nothing? Your heart pounds, your voice shakes, your words race ahead of your thoughts. And in that flood of emotion, the point you wanted to make gets buried beneath tone, not truth. It's a common trap, especially when we feel misunderstood or disrespected. But the Stoics knew, when chaos rises, clarity must rise higher. Seneca once wrote, "A quarrel begins with words, but it is resolved by silence or by speech that flows from reason." And in this third Stoic strategy, we are reminded that words are not weapons. They are instruments of precision. If you wish to be heard, do not shout. Speak with stillness. Speak to be understood, not to overpower. There's a story of a man named Elias who worked in a tense corporate environment. One day, his superior publicly accused him of undermining a project. All eyes turned. Rage tightened in his chest. But Elias didn't snap. He listened, truly listened. Then he replied, not with excuses or blame, but with calm observation. "I hear that you felt unsupported. May I share what actually happened?" The room changed. His clarity didn't just defend him, it disarmed the entire moment. The accusation lost its sting because Elias never surrendered his composure. To follow this path means you listen before you speak, not just to reply, but to understand. You meet emotions with presence, not with noise. Instead of saying you're wrong, you say, "Here's what I see." Instead of "you always do this," you say, "I felt overlooked when these small shifts in tone and intention transform conflict into conversation." Marcus Aurelius reminds us that you always own the option of having no opinion. There is never a need to lose your temper. The goal is not to crush the other person, it is to preserve your own dignity while inviting clarity. Real power is not about dominating a room. It's about holding your space without letting the room dominate you. And when you can do this, you unlock something rare, the ability to influence without force. That is the beginning of the next Stoic lesson, where silence becomes the most commanding voice in the room. Number 4, seek the shared path. Have you ever stood in opposition to someone, convinced you were climbing an entirely different mountain, only to realize with time that you were both seeking the same view? Conflict often disguises itself as division, but beneath the surface our intentions are rarely so far apart. We're all seeking something: respect, safety, truth, peace. And when we forget that, we start building walls instead of bridges. The Stoics teach us that nature itself is unity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "We were born for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of upper and lower teeth. Even when we appear to stand opposed, life often invites us to see from a higher perspective, not me versus you, but us searching for what matters. And when we begin with that lens, disagreement becomes a tool for understanding, not a battlefield for egos." I once heard a story of two neighbors locked in a bitter dispute over a dividing fence. One wanted privacy, the other sunlight. For months they argued, letters were sent, tensions rose, until finally they sat down, not to accuse, but to ask, what are we really trying to protect? The answer surprised them both. One was guarding his solitude, the other his garden. The solution was simple, a transparent wall with climbing vines. But the breakthrough wasn't the fence, it was the shift from individual wants to shared needs. This is the Stoic way. Look beneath the surface. Ask not just what each person wants, but what need is crying out beneath the demand. Is it recognition, security, a sense of fairness? Find the values that anchor you both: honesty, decency, justice. They may be hidden behind frustration, but they're often the same. And when you find even the smallest point of agreement, no matter how trivial, cherish it. That spark of common ground can light the path forward. In every conflict, there is a bridge waiting to be built, not with force, but with shared purpose. And when we choose to walk that bridge together, we don't just reach understanding, we grow in it. From here, we move to a lesson that's even more powerful: how to lead the energy of the room without ever raising your voice. Number 5, appeal to their inner values. Have you ever tried to convince someone only to feel like every word you said bounced off a wall? You speak with logic, with urgency, even with passion, but nothing moves. That's because people aren't driven by surface-level arguments. They're guided by something much deeper, the quiet pull of their inner values, the principles they've rooted their identity in, often without even realizing it. The Stoics understood this invisible foundation. Like a tree anchored by unseen roots, a person is rarely swayed by force, but can be subtly moved by wind, water, and alignment with what they already hold dear. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. And to influence someone skillfully, you must reach for the roots, not the leaves. There's a story of an old teacher and her stubborn student. The boy resisted every lesson, arguing at every turn. One day, instead of correcting him, she asked, "What do you believe makes a person honorable?" The boy answered without hesitation, "Someone who keeps their word." The teacher nodded. "Then all I ask is that you live by your own standard." From that day, something shifted. Not because she forced him to listen, but because she spoke to the value already inside him. This is the Stoic way, not manipulation, but resonance. Learn to read a person's values the way a sailor reads the stars. What do they praise? What do they defend? What stories do they tell with pride? When you speak to these inner currents, honesty, loyalty, fairness, you speak a language that doesn't provoke resistance. You speak to identity, not opinion. You don't need to change someone's mind if you can awaken what's already true in their heart. Let your words reflect their compass, not just your argument. Show, don't tell. Let your actions, your tone, your integrity embody the very values you appeal to. When you do this, conflict transforms. It's no longer about overpowering, it's about guiding. And in that guidance, we prepare ourselves for the next lesson, commanding the space without ever needing to control it. Number 6. Use humor wisely in conflict resolution. Have you ever been in a tense conversation where the air felt thick, like any wrong word might tip everything over? And then, unexpectedly, someone says something light, maybe even silly, and the weight lifts for a moment. You breathe. You both smile. That is the quiet magic of humor when used with wisdom, not to escape conflict, but to make space within it. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once said, "A joke is a delicate thing. What begins in jest can end in insult." Laughter is not always harmless. It is a blade that can heal or cut, depending on how it's used. And in the art of conflict, humor is not a weapon. It's a bridge, but only if you know where and how to place your foot. Picture a man named Jonah in a heated meeting where two department heads were accusing each other of sabotaging a project. Jonah, the mediator, listened quietly until one of them muttered, "This whole thing is a mess." Jonah chuckled softly and replied, "At this point, even the coffee machine is choosing sides." The room went silent, then laughter. The tension broke just enough for the real conversation to begin. He didn't mock either side. He didn't avoid the issue. He used humor like a light tap on the brakes, enough to remind everyone they were still human. To use humor the Stoic way is to ask, is this a moment for lightness, or am I trying to dodge discomfort? Is the laugh I seek one of shared relief or veiled aggression? Aim to laugh with, not at. Lean into humility before irony, and always read the room, then read it again. If in doubt, hold your tongue. It's far easier to preserve trust than to patch it after a careless jest. Used with care, humor can make truth easier to hear and people easier to reach. So the next time conflict threatens to harden hearts, consider offering not a punchline, but a moment of shared lightness. If this insight resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe for more Stoic wisdom and drop a simple laugh lightly in the comments, because up next we'll explore the art of silence, not as retreat, but as power. Number 7. Offer empathy. Have you ever stood across from someone who seemed unreachable, caught in their anger, closed off in their silence, or lashing out without warning? You want to defend yourself. You want to be heard, but instead you feel like you're shouting across a canyon, and your words only echo back unanswered. In moments like this, reason alone will not carry you forward, but empathy might. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question. What fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize?" The Stoic doesn't rush to judge. He descends from the mountain of pride and walks down into the valley where understanding begins. Imagine two siblings arguing over the care of an aging parent. Words get sharp. Old wounds resurface. One accuses the other of never being around. The other snaps back with resentment. But one of them, let's say the sister, pauses. She looks beyond the surface. She sees that her brother isn't careless. He's overwhelmed. He's afraid. And in that instant, instead of fighting back, she says, "I know this has been heavy on you. I'm tired too." That moment of empathy doesn't solve everything, but it changes the tone. And sometimes that's enough to open the door. To practice this Stoic strength is not to abandon your position. It is to honor theirs, even if you don't agree with it. Look into the shadows beneath their anger. Ask what pain, what fear, what insecurity might be speaking through their voice. Listen not just to their words, but to their pauses, their tone, their trembling hands. Often, what isn't said is what needs to be heard most. And remember, empathy is not surrender. It doesn't mean excusing poor behavior or sacrificing your truth. It means choosing to see the humanity in the person across from you. You walk beside them, not behind, not ahead. Because in doing so, you don't just resolve this conflict, you plant the seed for future peace. And in that spirit of connection, we now turn to a quieter but equally powerful force in conflict, the choice to say nothing at all. Number 8. Embrace the art of compromise. Have you ever stood your ground so firmly in an argument that even after winning, you walked away feeling strangely hollow? It's a quiet realization when you get your way, but lose connection, when your victory costs more than you thought. Like trying to force an ancient oak tree to bend. You might snap a branch or break your own hand in the process. But the wind doesn't fight the oak. It moves around it, learns to share space. This is the Stoic view of compromise, not weakness, but wisdom. Epictetus taught, "Seek not to have things happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do, and you will find peace." This doesn't mean surrendering your values. It means understanding that clinging to rigid outcomes often creates more suffering than resolution. To compromise is not to concede, but to adapt, to meet life where it is, not where your pride demands it be. Consider two business partners locked in a dispute over leadership. Each believes they know best. Meetings grow tense. Progress stalls. Then one of them suggests, what if instead of splitting roles by title, we divide by strengths? Suddenly, the conflict softens. Neither got exactly what they wanted, but both felt seen. And the business? It began to grow again. They didn't resolve the conflict by domination. They resolved it by cooperation. To embrace this Stoic practice, you must begin by reframing the conflict. It's not you versus them. It's both of you versus the misunderstanding. Look for shared values beneath the disagreement: honesty, respect, progress. Not every point is worth defending to the death. Know what matters most and let go of what doesn't. Be open to outcomes where everyone gains something, even if no one gets everything. Life is not fixed. It moves, shifts, transforms, and so must we. A true Stoic is not the one who never bends, but the one who knows when to, with intention. In doing so, you don't lose ground, you gain wisdom. And from that grounded wisdom, we now step toward the next essential power, choosing stillness instead of reacting. Number 9, seek external aid without shame. Have you ever felt stuck in a conversation that goes nowhere, like being tangled in thorns? The more you try to move, the more it hurts. You try to explain, they try to defend, but no progress is made. Only silence, frustration, and the growing sense that understanding may never come. In moments like these, pride whispers that you must handle it alone, but the Stoics would say otherwise. Epictetus reminds us, the wise man is self-sufficient, but he also knows when to borrow the strength of others. Seeking help does not betray weakness, it reveals strength. Strength to recognize when the storm within has clouded your clarity. Strength to know that peace sometimes arrives through the hands of another. Picture two close friends, Daniel and Mira, once inseparable, now unable to hold a conversation without blame. They tried talking, texting, even long voice notes explaining their sides. Still, every exchange felt like reliving the same pain. Finally, they agreed to sit with a neutral friend, someone both respected. In that space, something shifted. not because the mediator had magic words, but because they held the space steady. And in that steadiness, Daniel finally heard the sadness beneath Mira's anger. Mira finally understood the silence behind Daniel's distance. What they couldn't build alone, they rebuilt together with guidance. Whether it's a therapist, a mentor, a trusted elder, or a skilled mediator, the presence of a third voice can cut through the emotional noise. It can remind both sides that the goal isn't to win, but to understand. These guides help translate pain into language and defensiveness into reflection. They don't take sides, they reveal them. Stoicism does not demand you suffer in isolation. It calls you to take responsibility for your growth, even if that growth includes reaching out. True strength is discerning when your own tools are not enough and choosing to sharpen them with another's help. So, if the road seems blocked, don't force your way forward. Let someone who's walked it before light a path through. And from that clarity, we arrive at one final truth. The kind of resolution that begins not with force, but with forgiveness. Number 10. Forgiveness. Have you ever felt like you're carrying a heavy stone inside your chest? One that doesn't just weigh you down, but bruises you from the inside out. That stone is resentment, and the longer you carry it, the deeper it digs into you. You think you're punishing the person who hurt you, but in truth, you're the one bleeding. Stoicism teaches us that forgiveness is not weakness. It's the decision to stop harming yourself for what someone else has done. Seneca once wrote, "He who is angry always remembers. He who forgives forgets the wound." Forgiveness does not erase the past. It untangles you from it. It does not excuse betrayal. It frees you from carrying it any longer. The Stoic doesn't seek revenge. The Stoic seeks liberation from bitterness, from pain, from the emotional chains that keep us anchored to suffering. Imagine someone named Elia. Years ago, her closest friend betrayed her trust, spreading a secret that shattered their bond. For years, Elia couldn't speak that friend's name without her voice tightening, but one day, as she sat journaling beneath a tree in her garden, she wrote, "They were unkind, but I've punished myself enough for their mistake." In that moment, she didn't excuse what happened. She released it. She chose peace over poison, and that peace began to bloom. To forgive the Stoic way is to start with yourself. Acknowledge how the anger has shaped your thoughts, hardened your body, narrowed your heart. Ask what price you've been paying to hold on to it. Then widen your perspective. What pain or ignorance might have led the other person to act as they did? Understanding does not mean approval, but it does soften the wound. Let go of the weight, but not the wisdom. Carry the lesson, not the rage. Practice active release, not once, but whenever the resentment resurfaces. Journaling, breathing, silence. These are tools of real warriors, those who fight not with others, but within themselves. Forgiveness, in the end, is not a gift to the one who hurt you. It's a gift to your future self. It says, "I deserve to be free. I will not let this scar define my path." And from this quiet triumph, we return to the heart of Stoicism itself, not reacting to life, but mastering it from within. Number 11. Growth from the ashes of conflict. Have you ever walked away from an argument, heart still pounding, and later whispered to yourself, "I could have handled that better"? The shame, the tension, the regret. These emotions can bury us or refine us. Like a fire burning through a forest, conflict can leave devastation behind, but also the fertile soil for something new to grow. Stoicism invites us not just to survive our disagreements, but to emerge from them wiser. Epictetus reminds us, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." What is in our power, always, is reflection. In every quarrel, there is a mirror, and in every emotional trigger, a lesson waiting to be revealed. The Stoic does not merely recover from difficulty. He studies it, mines it, and transforms it into character. Picture a man named Julian who argued with his business partner so intensely they stopped speaking for weeks. The deal fell through. The silence dragged on. But Julian, instead of clinging to blame, started journaling every night, not about the other man, but about himself. What stung most? Why did he react so sharply? What values were stepped on? Slowly, clarity emerged. He realized it wasn't just the disagreement. It was his fear of being dismissed, an old wound. With that insight, Julian didn't just mend the relationship. He rewired the way he engaged with others. Growth begins with humility, the kind that doesn't shrink you but awakens you. Ask, what did this reveal about me? Was I reactive or composed? Did I listen or just wait to speak? Don't let reflection become rumination. Turn your insights into action. If you fail to express yourself clearly, learn to pause and speak with intent. If emotions controlled you, practice mindfulness before the next storm. The Stoic path is not about never falling, but about using each fall to understand your own footing. Conflict, when approached wisely, becomes the forge in which integrity is tested and sharpened. You emerge not just restored, but rebuilt, because even from ashes, a stronger self can rise. And from that strength, we now look to the most subtle yet potent Stoic technique of all: influencing without force. Number 12. Setting boundaries. Have you ever stood at the edge of the ocean, enjoying the soft rhythm of the waves, only to feel someone step too close, disrupting your peace without a word? It's subtle, but the discomfort is real. Like life itself, our emotional shores need space, boundaries not built from walls, but from quiet strength. In Stoicism, setting boundaries is not an act of exclusion, it's an act of clarity, of knowing where you end and where the world begins. Epictetus once said, "It is not events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. People will act as they will, but how we allow those actions to affect us, how we respond, what we tolerate, what we protect, that is entirely in our power." And boundaries are the shape of that power. Consider Ava, a woman known for always saying yes. Yes to favors. Yes to last-minute requests. Yes to tolerating rudeness in silence. Until one evening after a dinner where she was once again spoken over and dismissed, she walked home in silence and whispered to herself, "I deserve better." The next week, she began saying no, not with anger, but with grace. "I won't be joining this time," she'd say. Or, "That tone doesn't work for me." The world didn't collapse. In fact, it started respecting her more. She hadn't become colder, she had become clearer. To set Stoic boundaries, begin by understanding your values. What restores you? What drains you? Define this not to judge others, but to protect your inner harmony. Communicate your boundaries with calm firmness. Don't mask them in hints or guilt. Speak plainly and kindly. "This is what I need. That's not okay with me." You will face resistance. Some may push back, call you difficult, even selfish. But Seneca reminds us, no man is free who is not master of himself. And self-mastery often begins with the courage to say no. Boundaries aren't walls. They are invitations to healthier relationships, to clearer communication, to deeper respect. When you uphold them, you teach others how to meet you without overstepping. And in doing so, you walk with dignity, guarding your peace not through isolation, but through self-honoring clarity. And from this clarity, we arrive at the final Stoic insight, the quiet power of influence without pressure, guidance without force. Number 13. Remember you control your reactions. Have you ever felt like the world was crashing around you? Someone said something cruel, a situation turned against you, and suddenly it was as if a storm had burst into your chest. The winds of anger, the thunder of insult, the downpour of confusion. In that moment, everything inside you wants to lash out, defend, explode. But deep down, another voice whispers, "Wait, breathe. Don't hand your power to the storm." This is the essence of the 13th Stoic insight. Remember that while you cannot control the storm, you can master the helm. Epictetus once said, "It is a shame for the soul to surrender to the body. The body may tremble, rage, react. But the soul, the part of you that thinks clearly and stands still, must remain in command." Real strength, the kind that cannot be taken from you, is not the ability to dominate others, but to govern yourself. Imagine a man named Elias standing in the middle of a tense meeting where he's just been unfairly blamed for something he didn't do. His jaw tightens, his heart races, his pride screams to retaliate, but instead he listens. He says nothing. He takes a slow breath, and later he clarifies his position calmly, without insult, without drama. What he earns isn't just resolution. It's respect. That moment, though small to others, was a quiet act of victory, not over the room, but over himself. To walk this Stoic path, start by identifying your emotional terrain. What provokes you? What cuts deep? A particular tone of voice, a phrase, a look? Don't judge it, just know it. Self-awareness is the first shield. Then, when the trigger appears again, create space. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. In that space between stimulus and response is your opportunity to choose, to inhale, to observe, to respond, not react. And if you must act, act with intention, not with the heat of ego, but the clarity of purpose. Ask yourself, will this reaction serve peace or pride? Will it elevate the situation or escalate it? Will I feel more in control afterward or emptier? This discipline does not come overnight. Like a muscle, it grows with effort. You will slip, you will snap. But every time you pause, every time you practice restraint, every time you walk away from chaos instead of into it, you're sharpening your inner edge. You're becoming formidable, not through noise, but through poise. Stoicism does not demand passivity. It demands presence. It asks you not to be a puppet of emotion, but a sculptor of character. And in doing so, it hands you a power that no insult, no betrayal, no failure can strip away, the power to remain unmoved in the storm. So the next time the world throws its worst at you, remember this: you are not what happens to you. You are how you choose to face it, and in that choice, repeated over days and years, you will not just resolve conflict, you will rise above it. This is how you win without fighting. This is how you live like a Stoic. True strength isn't about conquering others, but mastering yourself. When you respond with clarity, not chaos, you win without the need to fight. If this spoke to you, subscribe for more timeless Stoic wisdom. Comment, calm over chaos. And remember, your next challenge is where your growth begins.